I have some contact with some individuals that are in difficult parts of the world where there is squalor and local violence and conflict. And so I said, this is just a few hours ago, maybe even sooner, in a correspondence, I said, God bless you. And they said to me back, God bless you, and may God protect you and your family. And I got to thinking about the first thing that it struck me as preposterous, that somebody in their position should be saying to me, God bless you, when I have a brand new Woo Sox hat. So, but at the same time, it reminded me of something, and it made me feel good. And I thought about it for another 10 minutes. Just that expression, God bless you. I mean, we say it after sneezes, and it's in many areas considered, that's the etiquette. That's the convention, is that you will say, God bless you, even if you're an atheist. You're sitting in a lecture of Benatar, David Benatar, South Africa. And the teacher's pet in the front row. Why is it the teacher's pet? I don't know. I just think it's funny, the idea that a David Benatar atheist has teacher's pets. So let's say the star TA says, oh, he sneezes, they sneeze. And Benatar says, God bless you. Or maybe he said, bless you. What does Benatar say if you sneeze? Anyway, I got to thinking that, well, I don't know if we hear this phrase that much in this country, certainly more in some areas than others. And if it's a local vernacular colloquialism, sure, we can't knock that, of course. But it has a bit of a different effect than to hear it in New York City. And I guess being that I'm sort of a passive pushover of a guy, I'm sentimental and so on, prone to tears. It's interesting. It seems to carry weight somehow in the city. certainly many people who drive cars for a living whether they're native Spanish speakers or native Arabic speakers, chances are, if they are one of those two, God bless you, will certainly not be a negative contribution to their day. And if you offer it to them, almost certainly you get it back too. So I'm not really entirely all that sure what this has to do with atheism at all. And yeah, there is some, and I will mention this also, and it's worth noting to the philosophers listening. This has philosophical import. So a friend of mine, more of a mutual acquaintance, a while back, say 2005. Now, this individual was a veritable Heidegger scholar, but they were not really following an academic path. I think they were more involved in the arts. Not entirely sure. And so I got to, and at the time I was reading lots of Hegel, and I was and am especially interested in Heidegger's reading of Hegel. I mean, Heidegger's pretty interesting on anything, even though he's kind of a shit writer. But hey, I belong to the Shit Writers Club, so sign me up! Sign me up. I'm a bona fide shitty philosophical writer, just like my homeboy. What's his name, Heidegger? Wilfred? W.V.O. Heidegger. Wilfred von Orman Heidegger. I got to also thinking about this whole idea of discipline and punishment. And if we take on board the idea that I've never experienced anything like discipline nor punishment, it has a kind of double sensitivity and or insensitivity effect. On the one hand, I seem to be especially sensitive to all manner of violence. So even just the wrong tone of voice can make me understand that I am involved in a philosophical standoff. And certainly any criticism of my person, I understand with 100% philosophical import. I will just start pulling out personal identity arguments and shoving them straight down your throat. If you make any personal criticisms of me, I will just simply run through the whole laundry list of personal identity arguments and just ram them down your throat, and then I'll pick apart any word out of your mouth, any letter out of your mouth, with the full force of all the logical fallacies that I know by heart and can spot in real time as they're as they're articulated in real time. All the basic logical fallacies. So, have at it. Have at it. Come get it. Double sensitivity. Double sensitivity how? Any little thing makes me understand that we're engaged in proper warfare. So that means on the one hand, most everyday conversation is water off a duck's back because most of it's pretty meaningless unless somebody confronts me directly with some kind of a challenge, personal criticism or some other kind of a challenge. And then philosophical arguments come out. So that is when provoked. That is when provoked. And I'll certainly get animated, but it'll always be for the sake of self-defense. I'm being provoked. But the nature of what provokes me is probably mysterious and would have to remain mysterious to the layperson's mind. And moreover, many times I find, especially recently, whenever it's explained, what it is I have found agonistically presented, let's say, provocatively, agonistically presented to me in the second person. I don't know. Provoke, presented to. Or even not. I mean, it almost gets these days into territory of non-presentation. Like, is something not being presented, you know, because everybody's just fucking remaining silent. It's more likely the case that all sorts of things are just simply not being said, not being presented, not, you know, there are plenty of us that have all sorts of ways of provoking thought leaders, people in authority positions, anybody in a position of authority who is misusing the authority. If you've got half a brain, you can provoke them. You can stick your neck out. And you can put your neck on the line if you feel sufficiently strong about the fact, like I do, that this country produced me and little else. We can isolate this little thing, that person, but what? It's going to be 2,000 futures. That's a slip. 2,000 teachers and 2,000 futures. Yeah. Take that, Alan Bass. So I'm sensitive to provocation in various ways that might look overly sensitive or just plain weird. And then at the same time, a kind of insensitivity. So you got the sensitivity just to any little violence. Even like a good deconstructionist, as you know, I hope that I try to be, can even see violence happening in text, because there's nothing outside of text. So we understand violence at a very kind of nano level. So sensitivity to violence profound moral sensitivity to violence on the one hand, but then also a certain kind of insensitivity to the morality of those who, I guess, to those who have a greater tolerance threshold, capacity for dealing with violence. Basically, people that have been through difficult things. Like if you've been through Navy SEALs training, you have a higher tolerance for pain than someone who has not. There are plenty of people who cannot endure that. It would destroy them if they were forced to go through. And so there are comparable things within psychological development to the Navy SEALs, what's it called? The underwater demolition. Underwater demolition. What is the saying? Buds. Buds? Is that the acronym? Anyway. Plenty of people's childhoods are much more gnarly than Navy SEALs training because the childhood lasts, 18 years? Right? Navy SEALs training lasts how long? 2 weeks? I don't know. It definitely doesn't last 18 years. I mean, you can't even be a Navy SEAL for 18 years probably. I mean, it's probably like an American football player. How long is your career going to be? Well, God willing, it's going to be just hella long. I mean, what am I, from San Francisco now? Hella long. That's how I think that American football players talk.